Paralegal Power Break, and this session is international sports issues. So this is part of sports law. So what I'm going to do is talk about pretty much the Olympic Games. Now, if you read the invite to this power break, you'll see that the Olympic Games is political, it's financial, it's all of these different things combined. Now, the IOC is the International Olympic Committee. Now, this committee actually governs the Olympic movement. The Olympic movement is just a term that's used to describe international Olympics, the system of rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. And all countries recognize that participate in the Olympic Games recognize the supremacy of the IOC as far as the Olympic Games is concerned. But it can be, we'll talk about some cases that, were very controversial, and also wars. There's wars that sometimes people will, or countries will boycott the Olympic Games because of, different issues occurring in countries that are participating in the Olympics. So we'll talk about that. Now, the IOC is based in Lucerne, Switzerland. It was created in 1896 in Athens, Greece. That was the first Olympic Games. And when it was first created, it was actually created for amateur athletes. But, since then, that's changed. Michael Jordan has been a participant in the Olympic Games. So it's changed, from the inception, but it was originally for amateur athletes. But it has changed since then. Now, the political landscape of the IOC, there's been a lot of things that has occurred. In the 1972 Munich Games, this was an issue where, it was when Jesse Owens was participating in Olympic Games. I think that was back in the 1930s. Hitler did not recognize his gold medals, because Jesse Owens is an African-American, or was an African-American man. So there's a lot of issues that occurred. There's, in 1980, there was a boycott of the Moscow Games because of the Soviet, I believe this was where the boycott due to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So the U.S., as well as other nations that followed, actually boycotted the Moscow Games. So there's been a lot of, there's some other issues that have occurred over time. We'll talk about some specific cases, but, because the Olympic Games is international, brings athletes together from around the world, sometimes there are things occurring within countries that other countries do not agree with, so they will show their disapproval by boycotting or not attending the Olympic Games. Now, the IOC structure is the topic. It is the supreme authority as far as the Olympic movement is concerned. And again, the Olympic movement is just the policies, the rules, the procedures of the Olympic Games. The IOC also determines where the Olympics will be held. They do this 6 years in advance. Then you also have the International Federation. These are sport-specific regulatory bodies that set international rules under the jurisdiction of the IOC. And then you have the NOC, which stands for National Olympic Committees, and these are designated national organizations responsible for managing the affairs of different countries' Olympic Games. And we'll talk about the United States in a second here, which is a form of a NOC. The National Governing Body, or NGB, these are sport-specific regulatory bodies for a particular country. So you have NOC, which is not sport specific, but they're regulatory bodies for particular countries. And then you have the NGBs, which would go under the NOC because they are country specific, but they are also sport specific. Now, in the United States, what we have, our NOC is called the USOC. And the USOC was established, I believe, established in 1950, September 21st, 1950. But it was amended by former President Bill Clinton, and it was amended, and now it's called the Ted Stevens Olympic and Amateur Sports Act of 1998. Now, the amendments that were made included the supervision of the Paralympics, preventing injunctions against the USOC 20 days prior to the relevant games, and requiring the USOC to hire an athletic ombudsman. So this person is charged with providing free, independent advice to athletes about the Ted Stevens Olympic and Amateur Sports Act. They also, with the creation of the USC, the Act granted the exclusive right to use the name United States Olympic Committee, which the USOC is an abbreviation for, the 5 interlocking rings of the International Olympic Committee, the use of the USOC's emblem, and the use of the words Olympic, Olympe, and Cities Elitis Fortune. So when the USOC was created, there were certain rights that were given to it, including the exclusive use of the word Olympic. Now, keep in mind that although there are these different, there's the IOC, you have the International Federation, you have the NOCs, which are nation-specific, and then you have the NGBs, which are nation-sport-specific. There was the creation of the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which is the abbreviation you may see as CAS. And this was created because sometimes there was issues with, challenges like in the American courts and athletes feeling like believing that they were not treated fairly, just some inconsistencies in the way that rules and regulations were applied. And so that actually spurred the creation of the Court of Arbitration of Sport. Now, something also that's interesting when dealing with law, international sports and law, are certain cases. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Tonya Harding case, but the Tonya Harding case was where in the Olympics, this was back, in the 80s, where Tonya Harding was competing. She was, I believe, a figure skater. And she was believed to have attempted to injure another, a fellow American figure skater so that she can eliminate the competition. So there was a lot of issues behind this. It was there was a committee that was formed. First, it was said that she wasn't going to be able to compete in the Olympics, but then she said that she was going to, she threatened a lawsuit. She was allowed to compete, but afterwards, I believe that was stripped from her, and then she also came like 8th in the Olympic Games. But this was, an issue where it was a huge battle because there were certain things going on. It was not just the Olympic committee. There was also lawsuits that were filed in court because she filed a lawsuit in, I believe, when did she file that lawsuit at? I don't know if it was Oklahoma. Let's see. She filed this case, Oregon. She filed a case in Oregon seeking a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction against the USOC because they were trying to keep her from competing in the Olympic Games. So with this lawsuit that she filed, this would have stopped their ability to prevent her from competing. She also sought $25 million in compensatory and punitive damage if she was banned from competing in the game. So, you know, they agreed that she would drop the suit, and the USOC, which is the NOC for the United States, if they would let her compete in the Olympics. So they did. They allowed her to compete. She competed in the figure skating. But they held hearings afterwards. She filed another lawsuit, got an injunction preventing the figure skating. So the USOC is an NOC, which governs all the Olympic Games. They tried to bar her from the Olympic Games. She countered with a lawsuit in Oregon to the preliminary injunction, which is to stop them from preventing her from banning her from competing. So her attorneys and USOC settled, and she was allowed to compete. Now, the USSSA, which is an NGB, which is for the United States, it's specific to the figure skating sport. They actually had planned to hold a disciplinary hearing after the Olympics. She countered with another lawsuit specific to this disciplinary hearing, which was brought on by an NGB, which is the Figure Skating Association. And she got a preliminary injunction preventing them from holding the hearing until June 27th. Now, at the end, she actually ended up pleading guilty to criminal conspiracy charges, and she resigned from the U.S. Figure Skating Association. The injunction was removed. As for this injunction that was given providing that the U.S. Figure Skating Association couldn't hold this disciplinary hearing until June 27. That was removed, and the case was dismissed. Later on, the U.S. Figure Skating Association actually did meet. They voided her 1994 national championship title, and they banned her from figure skating for life. So this is just one example of just some of the controversy that occurs within Olympic sports, and also the different associations and the different organizations that are involved in disciplining an athlete. You know, in this particular case, the U.S., as well as courts, you know, because in this particular instance, there were different governing bodies and systems that were involved. You have the USOC, which is an NOC, that governs Olympic rules, regulations for the United States, disciplinary actions for the United States, all Olympic athletes in the United States that compete in the Olympic Games, which is not sport specific. Then you also had an NGB, which was specific to figure skating that was involved. You also had a two-court system that was two courts, because there was a lawsuit filed twice by Tonya Harding to try to prevent these associations or these committees from preventing her from competing in the game and later from disciplining her or having a hearing until after a certain period of time. So, you know, this particular case is really interesting because it shows you just the intermingling of these different association committees, court systems when an Olympic athlete is accused of something that, you know, does not meet the standards. Sometimes it could be illegal. In this case, it would be legal. But sometimes it could be just rules, like with the case of another Olympic athlete, Butch Reynolds. He was actually tested for drugs and found to have steroids in the system. He said that you know, wasn't true. He wasn't taking steroids. He filed a lawsuit, lost that lawsuit, then won the lawsuit, but on appeal it got reversed, and then it was a ban for him competing I think for 2 years. But then when the ban was almost up, because he went to trial against this Olympic Committee, they extended his ban further. So he countered with another lawsuit and actually won, because it was saying that this, you know, in there it was found that they were being, you know, seeking revenge, and that was the reason why they extended this ban for him not to compete. So it's just interesting to, you know, when you're dealing with sport, and specifically dealing with the Olympics, to see the interplay of laws, committees, court systems, and, you know, these specific regulatory bodies that are specific to nations as well as sports. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this particular section up. This was a paralegal power break. If you are interested in registering for a future paralegal power break or want access to past paralegal power breaks, visit our website, rainmakersonline.com. Go to our blog, and there's a category for paralegal power breaks. You can also register for tomorrow's power break, which is going to be on sports court. And then the power break on Thursday will be discussing a specific case. So you can register online by going to the blog and going to the specific category for paralegal power break. Hopefully you found this session useful. And you can reach out on our website. There's a contact button on the lower right. You can also send an email to info@rainmakersonline or call 800-580-6068. You also want to learn more about sports law in general, consider purchasing the text, Sports Law from the Engaged Learn. And you can access the link on our website. Thanks. Have a great day.